To mark Toyota's historic win at the 24 Hour of Le Mans, in this week's episode of Hill Climb Monsters in Project Cars 2, the absolutely monstrous Toyota TS050 hybrid takes on our Azure Coast Hill Climb course. But can it reign supreme once again? Let's find out. What's going on, guys? My name is Matilio and welcome back to Project Cars 2 and a brand new episode of Hill Climb Monsters. And before we jump into the meat of the episode, so to speak, I just want to apologise for the distinct lack of content over the last couple of weeks. If you've watched my PC build mirror series, you'll know how many problems I've had in getting that PC up and running and just getting everything settled down and back to normal again. And if you follow me on Twitter also, you'll notice that you would have seen maybe a week and a half ago that I had to put the channel on sort of temporary hiatus because my new PC decided to take a massive dump, figuratively speaking. So so yeah, I had to sort that problems out, but I finally figured it out. You'll see, if you watch that series, you'll see what the problem was and how much of a dumbass I felt after I found the problem. So yeah, that's where I've been for the last week or two. So apologies for the lack of content, but we're back now and hopefully we are back to normal. But yeah, so let's jump into the main part of the video. And as you can see on screen, this week's challenger for Hill Climb Monsters is the Toyota TS050 hybrid. And the reason I chose this car, obviously, because finally, after so many near misses, Toyota recently won the 24 Hour of Le Mans. And I figured what better way to celebrate that fact, only the second Japanese manufacturer to win the great race, what better way to celebrate than to take one of their charges around our Azure Coast Hill Climb course and see how it stacks up. So looking at some of the stats now, as you can see, fairly impressive all around. So it features four-wheel drive, it's got a V6 engine, it's a hybrid unit of course, so it's turbocharged, and I believe it also has, or it definitely has an energy recovery system and hybrid system. 7-speed sequential gearbox, producing 500 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds, a top speed of 208 miles an hour, and it's coming in at just under £2,000, which I think is just a shade under 1 ton in terms of weight. Now the power figure itself, 500 brake horsepower, I think that only relates to the actual internal combustion engine. That doesn't include the power you'll be getting when you're using the hybrid part of the power unit, basically. So the electric motor, I don't think that is included in that 500 brake horsepower, because I think the figure would be closer to 700, 800, maybe even more than that. I'm not too sure. Let me know in the comments if you know what sort of power figures this thing was putting out. But yeah, so in terms of practice and qualifying, the biggest thing to sort of get my head around in practice was just how fast this thing corners, how much speed you can take through the corners. It really is scarily fast, and it takes you a couple of runs and a little while just to get your brain sort of acclimatized to it, and you know, to get in the groove and figure out I can take this corner a lot faster than I was previously, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things. If you haven't driven this car, that's one of the biggest things you're going to find, that you can take corners so fast, and it just takes you a little bit of time just to acclimatize and just to figure out where the limit is, and it's far beyond the limit of another car any other cars you will drive. This thing is so good through the faster corners, and it's just absolutely brutal in terms of the speed you can take through there. There were a few problems here and there in terms of setup. One of the biggest ones was with it being four-wheel drive, there were a few understeering moments, but surprisingly in terms of the understeer, wasn't too bad. There were a few moments, but it was more oversteer that I was having. Through the slower corners, when you haven't got as much air going over the car and the aerodynamics aren't working as hard to keep the car on the ground, and it's more down to the mechanical grip side of it, I did have a few problems. Trash can corner was one of the areas. Those slow 90-degree corners, this thing wasn't exactly in its element in those particular scenarios. So the slower corners was not so much tripping it up, but it was a challenge, and you do have to tippy toe a little bit through some of them. Also, Ice Cream Cove was a particular challenge in this car. I'm not quite sure why or what it is, but as you can see on screen, one of the accidents we had, we come over the crest at the entrance to it, and it just kind of wobbles in midair, and when it drops me down to the ground, I just heading straight for a barrier, and that's pretty much the end of the run. And again, to Ice Cream Cove, the exit of it this time, you see we just get on the curve just a little bit. Actually, the understeer towards the back end of the corner was, you know, where I was finding it to be a little bit challenging on occasion. And as you can see, we get on the rear of the back right tyre gets just up on the curve just a little bit, and that just unsettles the rear and spits us off into a fairly sizable accident into a wall there. But overall, I mean, the big challenges in setting this car up, finding out where the balance with regards to downforce is. You don't have too much that it's so heavy to get around the corners that you're struggling and you have to really work it, but not so little of that it's just gonna hurt you in terms of how fast you can go through the corners, and it's just going to cost you time. So finding that balance was a little bit of a challenge. Same with the braking as well. Nice progression through the early part of it, but towards the, like, you know, as it comes down, it kind of just snaps shut almost. It just locks the brakes. So I'm not quite sure whether that's to do with sort of, or whether this has a fly-by-wire sort of braking system. It sort of feels like maybe it did. Good progression through the early part, and then it sort of, you know, snap shut almost. So that was a challenge in terms of finding the right bias and the right amount of brake pressure there as well. But yeah, I mean, overall there wasn't a whole lot to do with this car. I did soften the rear up, the rear anti-roll bars especially, just to get it to roll through the corners a little better, to give us a little bit of extra grip, and to just, you know, maintain a better contact patch at the rear end of the car. But yeah, so before we jump into the video or the run itself and take a look how the Toyota got on, we're just going to refresh our memories with regards to our leaderboard. So as you can see, the 2016 Dallara IR12 IndyCar still sits top of the table with a 554.199. And I mean, the only car you could probably say that it should really be challenging is the Jaguar XJR9, but honestly I think it's going to absolutely destroy that time at 6:26. I think it's going to absolutely muller it, so I think it definitely needs to be aiming for top spot. So yeah, 554.199 is the time to beat there. But on a more personal note, looking at the actual the full-blown leaderboards, and yeah, that's going to be an even bigger challenge, I think, because as you can see, the top time is set by someone we know, someone who's a frequent commenter on these videos, and someone I actually raced against a couple of days ago with the guys in the WSRC touring cars. Chris Jones is top of the table with a 5 minutes 40.079, or was it 8? I don't know, I can't quite see it in a minute, but a 078, so a very, very good time there. He either did it in the Audi R18, which again I feel is probably the faster of the two on a you know, on default setups, but whether it's the same here, we don't know. So that's the time I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to go #1 in the world in this particular category of car on the Azure Coast Hill Climb. So yeah, there are our targets. So what we're going to do now is we are going to jump over and see how the TS050 hybrid got on its run. Here we go then, guys. Toyota TS050 hybrid on our Azure Coast Hill Climb course, and as you can hear, we're already on that boost button, that using that extra energy from the energy recovery system as we go through booty curve and through the CLRS, is threading the needle all the way up to nearly 170 miles an hour before bringing it down all the way to about 60 to get it through cruise liner corner, and then down towards one of the slower corners on the course. We're going to get a big snap of oversteer coming out of trash can corner, but we catch it nice and early, and we're back on that boost button once again, heading down towards the magic roundabout, and we're going to absolutely thread the needle here at nearly 145 miles an hour over the bump in the crest, and we took it under power as well. This car is absolutely monstrous. It's immense how good this car is as we come through stickman squats now and up towards the happy highway. And once again, we're going to get it up to third gear, and then we're going to get on that boost button just to give us the maximum amount of speed down the longest straight on the course itself, and all the way up to 7th gear, and we're going to get all the way up to nearly 190 on the entrance of traffic cone corner as well. And you could probably go a bit faster, but again, you're going to have to trim off the downforce, and it'll be terrible through the corners. But coming through traffic cone corner, no hint of a lift. You can take it absolutely flat out in this car. It is so, so good. And again, you're going to see an example of how good this car is through the faster corners. Absolutely flat through Stonewall corner before dipping the brakes, get it down to 4th gear just to get it to come up the hill again. But yeah, like I said, this car is just absolutely immense. It really does. It does take a little bit of time just to acclimatise and get your brain to catch up to the car almost. But as we come through Ice Cream Cove, probably the most challenging section on the course for this particular car. It really had struggles through here, as we saw in the build-up to this run. And through that right-hander again, little hint of oversteer. We caught it nice and early though, and we're back on it again. Took a little bit of curbing through here, and then get it down to 3rd gear for this right and then left-hander as we come down towards the slowest corner on the course, James May corner. And again, It's pretty good through here. You're going to see we get a little bit of wheel spin on the back end, but we get through it fairly straightforward, fairly easily. And then we're back on that boost button again, coming down towards the end of the first sector. And I can actually tell you at this point, we're actually up by about 0.8 of a second on Chris Jones's time. So we're doing good as things stand at the moment. But as we come through Silver Spoon Village and through Rick Danger Corner, again, we're not going to use the boost because I'm wary we're only going to get a limited amount of usage out of that button. It will eventually run out, so you're not going to be able to use it everywhere, but we're going to get all the way up to nearly 175 miles an hour as we get up towards Fraggle Rock Corner. And again, so quick through here. Take a little bit of grass on the outside, but it doesn't unsettle the car, and we're back again on that boost button just to give us a little bit of a kick down towards Bridge Corner. And yeah, again, this thing is just so good. And again, once you find that groove with it about where you can take speed, they just really it's amazing. It really is. I can't really emphasize it enough. I know I keep saying how good it is through the corners, but it really is. It's just scary how fast this thing is through the corners. I can only imagine what would happen on this course if if Project Cars actually added the 919 Evo, the special edition car that Porsche have been using. How good it would be through here. But this still is absolutely immense. But coming through here, this again was a bit of a tricky one. That little dip on the just coming up to the apex did tend to unsettle the car. We get a little bit of oversteer, but we catch it nice and early. And now we're on to the Camel Straight, coming down over the first hump and then up to the second one as well. Again, we're going to get down to third gear. We're going to have a little bit of a lock on the brakes there. And then we get it down to second for the second of the Mirage corners. And again, we're going to give it a little bit of boost down the straight just to get us on our way down the pogo stick straight. But yeah, I mean, I was expecting it to be a lot worse through this particular section, the Montgomery McRae Hill Complex, but it was actually pretty good. But get the right hand wheel in the grass there and help it pull us around. But yeah, very good through here. A lot better than I was expecting it to be. And now we're coming down towards the back end of the run. And again, we're going to give it just a little bit of extra boost. It did bog down over that last little jump and crest and down onto the Great Ocean Highway, just absolutely flat. No hesitation at all. And that's the end of the second sector. And through the second sector, compared to Chris Jones, we're actually down by 0.2, so we're still up by about 0.6 of a second as things stand. So we're very much on to go for that world record. And again, give it a little bit of extra boost, a little bit of a liberal take to the track markings there, get fully on the grass and then take a little bit of curbing on the inside there, but it doesn't invalidate the run as we come across the viaduct straight. Almost 175 miles an hour through that corner. We're going to get it down to fourth gear. Again, a little bit of curbing on the inside, unsettles it just a little bit, but we're going to go absolutely flat through Deception. This is the first car that's been able to do that, going absolutely flat out, and I didn't lift through here either. It's just absolutely incredible to do sweeps. Again, a little dip of the brakes, just dip it down into fourth gear and get the nose in, and again you're back on the power, and it's just so good. This thing is an absolute apex monster, an absolute machine. It can find an apex anywhere. And coming down onto the final part of the run down through Rocky Road. At this point we'd run out of boost. I knew it was going to happen, and it was that again was another big challenge with regards to this run, just trying to figure out where to use it and where to maximize it and so on. But at this point we'd completely run out. As we come down towards the final corner, we're going to dip it down into fourth gear, get the nose in, box down maybe just a little bit, but it's still fairly quick. And as we come across the line, it's going to be an absolutely staggering 5 minutes 41.384. So it's good news and bad news, I guess, because while it's good enough to put it very firmly top of our Hill Climb Monsters leaderboard, unfortunately it's just going to fall a little bit short on the full-blown time trial leaderboards, the driver network leaderboards, because we're 1.3 seconds back on Chris Jones's time. And I mean, honestly, I was pushing this thing as hard as I could. I was up in the first sector, I was a little bit down in the second sector, but I lost 2 seconds compared to the Audi. So I don't know whether whether Chris just found a better way of deploying the energy, the ERS boost button, or whether it's just a case that the Audi is just a bit faster through the back end of the course. I'm not quite sure. I'll be sure to drive the Audi at some point during this series just to see if I can snag top spot from him. But I mean, overall, I'm still relatively happy with that. Number 2 in this particular category on PS4 in the world. I think that's a pretty respectable time all in all. Yeah, so once again, we've got a brand new leader on our Hill Climb Monsters leaderboard for the 3rd episode running. We've got a brand new leader. First it was the Lotus, then it was the IndyCar, and now it is the TS050 hybrid. So yeah, that's basically the end of today's video, guys. So thank you everybody so much for watching. If you did enjoy this, would like to see more Project Cars 2 or just general racing content from myself, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments, guys, if there is any cars you would like to see me drive in this particular series. Always happy to take your suggestions, and if you do leave a comment and I like your suggestion, then when I do the video, I will be sure to give you a mention there. So another little incentive for you to leave a comment down below. But again, guys, thank you everybody so much for watching. Stay cool, and as always, I will catch you in the next video. Peace.